ready when you are.
Hey guys, I may have go away heat, but these guys have true heel heat. So you better listen to the podcast or else I'm gonna kick you in your fucking cock and balls.
I'll get it.
Hey everybody, it's Tony Schiavone of All Elite Wrestling, and this is True Hill Heat, and I said it right, you motherfuckers.
Hello. It is me, your True Heel Phenom, SP3, and we are back once again with another TV show review. This time we're talking all about Ted, seasons 1 and 2. We're breaking it down, giving you our thoughts on the show as it was on Peacock, the Peacock original series based on the hit movies from 2012, the Ted movie, and it was a TV show as well, starting in 2024, and the new season came out in 2026. I am going solo for this occasion right here this time around, but appreciate y'all if you're joining us on the premiere of this review. Appreciate y'all if you're watching us on the demand as well. Remember to show your appreciation back the simplest way possible by dropping a thumbs up on the video, share with your friends, subscribe if you are new to True Hill Heat Sports and Entertainment. We talk about all things sports related, NFL, NBA. We're going to have some MLB content for the new season. We also discuss TV shows, movies, music, and much more. So hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to stay notified as we continue our march to 1,000 subscribers here. But comment down below. Let us know what you thought about Ted seasons 1 and 2, especially season 2. I'll be focusing more on that, but gotta touch on Ted season 1 as well. And of course, if you're watching us on the premiere, you can comment in the live chat. But without further ado, let's get to it. So Ted is, of course, the movie, the hit movie, Seth MacFarlane playing a live teddy bear, a teddy bear that is wished into existence by a young man by the name of John Bennett. The movie was a hit back in 2012. If you weren't aware, it's a 2012 American fantasy buddy stoner comedy film, co-produced by Seth MacFarlane and written by MacFarlane, Alex Sunken, and Wellesley Wild. This is based on a story written by Seth MacFarlane, and the first installment, of course, stars Mark Wahlberg and Mila Kunis, with Joel McHale and Giovanni Ribisi in supporting roles. MacFarlane provides the voice for and motion captioning for the title character. The story follows John Bennett, a Boston native whose childhood wish brings his teddy bear friend Ted to life. However, in adulthood, Ted and John's friendship provides a lot of interference and distraction to the progression of John and his work life and his relationship to his girlfriend, Lori. There was then Ted 2, which came out 3 years later in 2015, which again follows Ted and John. The film follows the Ted as he fights for his civil rights in order to be recognized as a person and not as a property, so he can adopt a child. Principal photography began in Massachusetts in like 2014 for that one, but all these years later, more than almost a decade later after Ted 2, in January 11, 2024, Ted, the TV show, started off on Peacock. It made its premiere in in January of 2024. The series was renewed for a second season in May of 2024, which premiered on March 5th, 2024. We got this one is set between 1993 and 1994, in between the opening sequence and main plot of Ted from 2012. This spin-off series is more of a prequel, which follows the early life of Ted as he lives with 16-year-old John Bennett and his family in Massachusetts. In addition to John and Ted, the Bennett household includes John's father, Matty, his mother, Susan, and his cousin, Blair, who is living with them while attending a college nearby. In the pilot episode, it follows Ted as he's forced to attend school with John from then on due to the trouble he causes while the rest of the family are at school and work, respectively. So I'll go through a couple of the different episodes, starting off with the first episode from season 1, and we'll progress into season 2. So season 1, the first episode is called Just Say Yes. After causing one too many mishaps with being home alone, Ted is mandated to start attending high school with John. After multiple attempts to get himself expelled, he discovers that Blair sells marijuana to pay the rent that Maddie charges her, and she reluctantly supplies some to him. After Ted gets both himself and John hooked on the substance, Maddie evicts Blair from his house. After finding out about her drug business, she explains to John and Ted that she insists on living with them instead of her dysfunctional birth family because she sees potential in her cousin and wants to look out for him because she didn't look out for her younger brother who's in jail. Ted bribes Maddie with the real mouth guard from Rocky, as he's a big Sylvester Stallone fan, and in exchange for letting Blair stay, and he complies. John and Ted promise Blair that they will not do drugs again, but they secretly get addicted to smoking pot. So this first episode is such a great pilot episode because it really gives you kind of the great character description of all the characters involved. Ted is a fuck up. In no short words, he's a fuck up, and he is just a agent of chaos at every turn, and he makes wrong decision after wrong decision. That's exactly why he has been forced to go to school with John. John is, in a lot of ways, he is manipulated and he gets a lot of peer pressure from Ted, and he listens to Ted because Ted is his only friend. He's an outcast, a loner. When he goes to high school, his best friend is Ted. His only friend is Ted, and he's pretty much a loser at 16 years old. Then you have, but he's also a person who has a good heart. He can make the right decision, but he tends to go down the wrong path due to Ted. As far as like Blair, I think is one of the better additions to the cast because she brings conflict to a lot of the ways of Maddie. Maddie is really the antagonist of the family because he has a lot of like closed-minded views. He's partially a racist. He's a misogynist as well. He's just overall ignorant, and Susan is just the best person ever. She's the best character, the best person in the family. She's the glue of everything. She's the cook, she's the cleaner, she's the mother to everyone involved here, including Maddie, her husband. So Susan is like really the best person in this whole series to me. So I really enjoyed this first episode because you get the character beats and the character descriptions, the traits of each of the characters very well from episode 1, and it gives you a great introduction into the whole family dynamic that's going on here. So episode 2 is My Two Dads, which is about Ted and John basically convincing their bully at school that they're his dad because he doesn't see him all the time. It's a fun episode, one of the better ones of the season, very funny, with Ted and John becoming the two dads to their bully at school, and they form a friendship because of it. We also get revealed that Blair pressures Maddie to confess his secret from his days in the army, where he reveals to the family that he was forced to masturbate a dog in Vietnam. Very cool point because it does get touched on in the second season. The the third episode is erectile dysfunction, which shows John and Ted discovering porno, where they watch their first porno, but he's too young to rent it. So they have to basically create a scheme and get fake IDs and get it. Susan, the mother, discovers the porno and she thinks that it belongs to Maddie. Blair has to convince her that it belongs to him because she doesn't want to scar her for life and tell her that it's John and Ted's. And it's a fun episode as well. Very fun stuff there. Going through a lot of the first season, a little bit shorter than I will with the second season, but episode 4 is subways, bicycles, and automobiles. As payback for all the suffering she is forced to endure from him, Blair forces Ted to be her designated driver on a Halloween night. However, Ted gets drunk because he's a teddy bear at a college party, and they basically get into a whole bunch of shenanigans. They crash the car. Ted has to meet Blair's professor, who has a fetish for teddy bears and wants to make love with him in a teddy bear suit. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous in so many ways. John is forced to be on his own for Halloween night because of this, and he has to basically hang out with one of Susan's friend's son, but it's not the real son, and we discover that at the end of the episode. Cool ending to this episode where they reveal that at the end. Episode 5 is Desperately Seeking Susan. This is one of the Susan episodes, which in season 1 and 2, the Susan episodes are peak because you realize that Susan is the best character in so many ways. She is the glue of this entire family in every which way. Blair believes that Maddie and Susan's relationship is unhealthy, given the latter's prosperity to let everyone walk all over her. Insists that they go to marriage counseling, but Maddie doesn't want to hear any of that. Ted is asked to help and he tries to be the counselor, and we discover that Susan always wanted to be a teacher. So Ted and John convince, after their teacher basically gets fired, they convince the principal to let Susan become a teacher there. She only does one day because she realizes that she likes being a housewife. She likes helping the family. She likes bringing that comfort, because she has a moment where Ted goes ham on one of these mean girls in the school because they were giving Susan a hard time, where he just exposes that she's having trouble at home, that she had a nose job, that she won't suck her boyfriend's dick, and a whole bunch of stuff. And she basically comforts her and makes her feel better, but she realizes that she likes to do that for her family, so she stops being the teacher and she goes back to being a housewife. Then we get Loud Night, which is episode 6. As Christmas approaches, Blair's friend Sarah decides to stay with the Bennetts due to her canceled flight. Maddie draws the family's ire after choosing to watch a football game over Susan's choir solo at church, and he basically stops them from sending all the toys to the church to give away, because he has this toy truck that he fell in love with as a child, and he wants to keep it, and he wishes that the toy truck would come alive, and it becomes Dennis, a very conservative, even more conservative than Maddie, toy truck that says a lot of obscenities, and basically it leads to Blair exposing that she's sexually fluid, as Sarah is her girlfriend. So this basically caused a whole ruckus at Christmas dinner, and it causes Sarah and Blair to want to leave because of the homophobia from the toy truck Dennis, as well as Maddie. Maddie has to basically accept the fact that his niece is sexually fluid and has made a choice in her life, and he has to accept her. So he shows that he's actually a little bit more open to stuff than originally how his character comes off. And Dennis exposes that he's actually in the closet. So great episode, one of the best of season 1. Finally, the last episode of season 1 is He's Gotta Have It. Following the introduction of sex ed in his class, John realizes that he may be the only remaining virgin in his student body. He and Ted try to prepare him for sex above all else, and soon enough, John forms a connection with his classmate Bethany. Ted ruins all of this because he sets him up with a date where they do the a whole new world thing from Aladdin, where they have like a carpet on top of his car, and Ted falls short, stops short when he's driving, and he hits the brakes as he sees a squirrel. They go flying off. They go to a hospital, and they seem to have like a lot of connections. They both like Flash Gordon and everything, but Ted tries to make John sound like he's sexually experienced, which turns Bethany off, and it leads to John having to expose to the whole student body that he's still a virgin. This leads to Bethany realizing that John is like her because she's also a virgin. So they go to her house and they're about to get busy. They're prepared to have sex. And then the OJ fleeing the cop scene happens on TV, and it ruins his night. This is the episode where they basically come up with the Thunder Buddy song, which kind of felt forced, but overall, season 1 is exceptional. It's just so great. It reminds you of like 90s, early 2000s sitcoms where you got a whole bunch of characters. There's crude humor, but it's done in a very tasteful way, in a family way. You can watch it with your adult kids, not the young kids. Even though my daughter seems to love Ted because it's a teddy bear going to life, and she doesn't understand a lot of the cruel stuff, the kind of the crude humor and the curse words that he says. She doesn't understand it, so it's fun for her. But I suggest anyone, if you want to get the introduction to this show, season 1 is a great place to start off. My missus didn't want to watch season 1 because I already watched it. She has this issue of watching stuff that I've already watched with me. So she watched season 2 first, and then she wanted to watch season 1 because season 2 is that good. So suggested for everyone. Out of 10, thumbs up for season 1. Out of 10, I'm going to give season 1 an 8.5 out of 10. Really, really funny stuff. It's hilarious comedy. It's kind of like Family Guy in live action, but early season Family Guy, when Family Guy was actually funny. Sorry, Seth MacFarlane. Sorry to creators of Family Guy. It's not that funny anymore. But this is. I wanted to see season 2 after watching season 1. So glad they came back this year with season 2. Unfortunately, the news is that we might not get a season 3 of the show. They're going more to an animated version of the show, which I think is a big mistake. But let's talk about season 2. Season 2 starts off with Talk Dirty to Me. This follows John and Ted in their senior year of high school. John and Ted get the idea to call a phone sex line after seeing an ad on TV. They don't want to charge. They don't want to do it at their home, so they decide to find a school basement phone, and they do so there. And they quickly become addicted to it. They rack up a $5,000 phone bill, which draws the attention from Mr. Lawrence, a chairman on the education board. When he suspects that John and Ted are the culprits, they make up a delinquent student named Jeremy to take the fall for them. Despite Mr. Lawrence's skepticism, he is convinced after seeing John in disguise perform a motocross stunt on the school grounds, which the whole school sees, and he vows to hunt him down and kill him, even if it takes the rest of his life. Meanwhile, in our B plot, we got Maddie, who invites Uncle Bernie over despite Blair's refusal to reconnect with her father. Bernie repeatedly bullies his younger brother, Matty, and his attempts to convince Blair to move back in fail when he lets it slip that he's doing it to win back his wife. When he attempts to speak for her, saying that she agreed to move back in, Blair throws a casserole in his face to drive him away. This embarrasses him in the similar way that he's been embarrassing Maddie the entire episode. And Maddie admits that he's grateful for what she did, and Blair admits that she's glad she lives in his house. So it's a nice little coming together of Maddie and Blair. They had that in the Christmas episode, but this felt more of like organic because Maddie was so for bringing Uncle Bernie over, not realizing that his big brother is actually an asshole that's been bullying him his entire life. And Blair is just disgusted by her father and doesn't want anything to do with him. So it works out here. Episode 2 is one of the episodes that I would say if you have a young child, you shouldn't let them watch this one. It's Mrs. Robichek. Maddie brings John and Ted to help him install an electric fence at a rich lawyer's home. The latter two are smitten with his neglected wife, Charlotte, who later calls Ted back to have sex. The two keep seeing each other until David returns home early one day and immediately suspecting an affair. He manages to spot John or driving Maddie's car, and he gets the license plate. Ted and John make the getaway, but he goes to Maddie's house. Maddie has been basically struggling with erectile dysfunction at the same time in the same episode due to envy over the Robotech's septic tank. Susan attempts to remedy this by borrowing a cosmopolitan magazine from her friend and reading through a list of kinks. So she even learns about the kink of voyeurism, where someone watches them have sex. And this would be very wise for her to find out. Hoping to better his marriage, David assumes Maddie is amazing in bed and pays him $5,000 to let him watch him have sex with his wife, Susan, only to walk away dumbfounded when they don't do anything unusual. He just has like 2-3 pumps and he's busting one easy. As Maddie gets his groove back due to the praise he got, Ted is heartbroken when he convinces his love to Charlotte, only to learn that she's willing to give David another chance. This features Ted wearing a dildo strap on. So, like I said, not the one you want to show to your young kids. This next episode is probably the one that cost the most money to make. It's called Dungeons and Dealers. Having run out of weed, Blair exits to borrow some from John and Ted to help her study for finals, but their stash has also run dry. John gets the idea to ask his classmate Chris for some, but Chris refuses unless the three are able to win a quest in Dungeons and Dragons. After reading a story about some teenagers who have vandalized a church, Susan insists on being there for her son and forces herself and Maddie to join the quest too. This leads to like a whole basically journey that they go on where they do like Dungeons and Dragons stuff. The group obtains a map to the temple and braves several traps before confronting the demon guarding the treasure. Everyone else dies trying to fight him, but Susan manages to touch his heart by talking to him and listening to him, causing him to relinquish his treasure, unaware that the whole quest was a ploy to get pot. And they get it. Cheers for a happy ending. I'm all for it. Great episode. Episode 4 of season 2 is the Moms Bombed rom-com. Ted infiltrates Blair's birthday party to smuggle beer for himself and John, but witnesses a falling out between Blair and Sarah. Blair, of course, admitted that she's in a relationship with Sarah and that she's sexually fluid to her family during Christmas in the previous season. But when we found out that Sarah has not admitted that she's sexually fluid to her family or that she's in a lesbian relationship to her family, so that causes the friction. Ted and Blair get drunk together and they eventually make out as well, prompting Sarah to break up with her when she finds out the next day. At the same time, when John confronts Ted about not grabbing the beer, Ted lies about sleeping with Mrs. Fletchko, which is their next door neighbor, and sets up a double date between her and her friend, between them and her friend Mildred, because John also wants to date an older woman. After receiving too many compliments about her jewelry, the latter suspect that John and Ted to be con artists and trying to steal their jewels, and convinces Mrs. Fletchko to ditch them at the restaurant. Meanwhile, Susan becomes despondent at Maddie's distant attitude and takes up drinking wine. Weirded out by her drunken antics, Maddie flees downstairs and sees a depressed Blair binge-watching rom-coms, slowly becoming hooked on the genre himself. He even watches Ghost, which is A+ material. Ghost is one of my favorite rom-coms from the 90s. Blair explains that there's no shame in showing vulnerability and his emotions, prompting Maddie to make a grand romantic gesture towards Susan, only to get himself severely hurt. He plays like a radio above his head, tries to climb up a ladder to her room, and he eventually falls off, and Susan has to comfort him instead. Then we get The Sword in the Stoned. As knowing colleges are looking for extracurricular activities, John and Ted audition for the school's production of Camelot, and but are cast as guards with no lines because John basically does this one-line scene from a movie he watched, while Ted does a performance of the Gummy Bears commercial. A+ stuff. This is what I showed my daughter, and now she loves Ted. Nonetheless, John manages to hit it off with Erin, the popular leading lady, the same girl that tried to give Susan a hard time in the previous season. They bond over acting. The two are excited for the play and plan to hang out afterward, but John becomes nervous when Susan tells him how many people will be watching. Blair gives him and Ted some pot brownies, unaware that they'll induce a panic attack until it's too late, until she's already having a panic attack herself at home. John and Ted sabotage the relationship at the whole play as a result of this, angering Erin, so it ruins John's chance to have sex once again, and are nonetheless able to add their extracurricular activities to their college applications. Meanwhile, Maddie applies for a job at Dunkin' Donuts to earn extra money, with Susan soon joining him after he complains about the small paycheck. Soon after they're hired, Maddie is excited to learn that Bill Clinton is visiting the shop soon, and he plans to roast him over his policies, only to get cold feet once the moment arrives. This is Seth Rogen with the aid of AI looking like Bill Clinton, which it is a funny moment, and it's kind of gone viral since this season. Clinton intimidates Maddie in private before leaving, though Maddie lies and says that he came out on top. He did not. Then we got episode 6 of season 2. Personally, another great Susan episode. I told you, Susan is the GOAT. After vomiting on Maddie during an argument, Blair discovers that, is this the Susan? No, the next one is the Susan episodes. My apologies. This one is called Roe versus Reed in season 2, episode 6. After vomiting on Maddie during an argument, Blair discovers she is pregnant and decides to have an abortion despite the blowback from her uncle and aunt. When she lets it slip that the conception of the baby resulted from a one-night stand with the RA at her college, Maddie finds Nimnit, who he thinks is the father, and he brings him home to talk Blair out of it, but that of course fails because that's not the right guy. Despite his assumption being proven wrong, the two bond over their shared politics. John and Ted, meanwhile, cover half the cost of the abortion by robbing the school's new vending machine, while Susan struggles to process Blair's decision. After John and Ted distract protesters outside the clinic, getting severely beaten up, they get bloody. Freaking Ted's eye is hanging out from his socket. Blair ultimately has the abortion as Susan decides to forgive her. So this was a good episode, kind of talking about a bigger topic than they usually address in the show. So this was very sitcom oriented, but in a very Ted way. It's raunchy comedy at the very least. It's a good laugh, even though they're talking about a big subject when it came to abortions in the 90s. Episode 7 of season 2, after Susan, it's called Susan is the New Black. A+ Susan episode. After Susan gets pulled over, the cop discovers the weed that John and Ted had just purchased, and Susan takes the blame, leading to her arrest. Despite John admitting that the weed was his, and despite Blair and Maddie ordering him to confess, Susan insists on taking the fall for him to protect his future and is sentenced to 10 days in prison. As punishment, John and Ted are forced to do all of Susan's daily house duties, but struggle at it, making a complete mess of the house. The house is basically unlivable by the time they are all done with this. In prison, though, Susan is initially disliked, but managed to win over all of her fellow inmates with her kindness and willingness to be the mother, be the housewife in prison, preparing better mess hall food, teaching literacy to some people that don't know how to read, ordering Easter boxes for everyone. By the time she gets home, she finds the house is clean thanks to Blair's assistance and lets John know that she'll always be there for him. Susan is the motherfucking GOAT. And then finally, the final episode of, it seems, the whole entire Ted's TV show series is Fraudcast News. 4 months after finishing high school, John fails to do anything with his life. Maddie angrily calls him out on his laziness but suffers a heart attack as a result, and is ordered to stay calm for a week while recovering from his artery stents. When the OJ verdict comes back and is decided, a guilt-ridden John is worried that Maddie will die of another heart attack and decides to block him from seeing the actual news, and they lied to him and say OJ was found guilty. With the help of Ted and Blair, they basically cut the house's cable. They print a fake newspaper and rehire Bert to film a fake news broadcast. Bert is the security guard at the mall that catches them when they're trying to steal a Sega Genesis for their bully in season 1, episode 2, and they hire him to play the dad for the bully in that season 1, episode 2, and he's brought back in the season finale here. He plays a fake newscaster to cushion Maddie's worldview. Upon recovering, Maddie goes outside and is ridiculed for defending the fake verdict and believing in the fake stories. Tired of lying, Blair hands Maddie the real paper, resulting in another heart attack. John apologizes for making Maddie angry in the first place, but Maddie reveals that he's impressed by the amount of effort he put into this whole deception, and tells him that he can do whatever he sets his mind to. In the end, John decides to hit the gym and become incredibly buff, which is basically the segue from the Ted TV show into the first Ted movie, where John, played by Max Burkholder, is going to become Mark Wahlberg and be all buff and stuff. So it's a good way to kind of end things off, segue into the movies. This show is so great, and I'm so disappointed that they're not coming back for a season 3. They got enough material with the characters at play and the different stuff that they can go through to go on for season 3 and at least the season 4. Like, we could have started this one off when John was first going into high school, and Ted goes into high school in like his freshman year instead of starting off in the junior year. Or you could have split it in half and done one half of junior year, the second season is the second half of junior year, and then you split 2 seasons for the senior year as well. This show is just so good. It's so many laughs to it. It's just it's part wholesome but part crude comedy at the same time. It's a great blend, and it gives you like a throwback to the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, where sitcoms were peak television, and Ted series is that good. It's on par. I think that the Ted TV show is better than both movies, not just the second one. The second one is objectively the worst of all the Ted content that we can discuss here, but the Ted TV show is actually funnier, actually more great character, character work. Acting is on peak throughout this whole series from everybody involved. Everybody is great in the roles they play, whether it's Blair, whether it's Susan, Maddie, John, Ted himself. This is just exceptional stuff. I tell you, go out of your way to watch it. This is my favorite comedy show of the year so far, and we're only a quarter of the way into the year, but this is great stuff. Go out of your way to watch Ted season 1, Ted season 2. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. As far as Ted season 2, it's going to get a big thumbs up from me. Out of 10, I actually like Ted season 2 a little bit more than Ted season 1. Ted season 1, you get a great introduction to all these different new characters outside of John and Ted. And I think that Max Burkholder does a great job as the younger John, where you get the elements of the John that you met in Ted 1 and Ted 2. You get him here, but in a younger version, a more kind of a more accepting version of himself, where he is just convinced by Ted to do the most outlandish and ridiculous things possible. And he's a more impressionable, I was looking for the word, impressionable version of John than even the John that's very impressionable in Ted 1. But he's even more as a 60-year-old here. And Ted is just great. Ted is just a great character, and Seth MacFarlane, probably the best character Seth MacFarlane's ever came up with, even more than all the great characters in Family Guy. Peter Griffin, move over. Ted is number one, in my opinion, especially after the TV show. So, like I said, I like season 2 a little bit better than season 1. So I will give it the edge, and I'm going to give Ted season 2 a 9 out of 10. I don't know what else you can add to make it a perfect season, but it's a great season of television. Bunch of laughs, bunch of great, well-used crude humor. The topics at hand, talking about like racism and the OJ trial and how that relates to people in Boston in the 90s, and then also kind of like abortion being addressed. They get through that, but you also are at its core, it's a sitcom, and you get that to the essence in season 2, even more, just slightly more than what you got in season 1. So for season 1, my MVP is going to be, I want to give it to Susan for both seasons. I'm gonna give it Susan her love, but for Ted season 1, it's Ted. Ted is the MVP because he brings a lot of the humor to this. It's a talking teddy bear who's just the most crudest, rudest, just curse words, smoking pod. He is just at his peak in season 1. Season 2, it is Susan. Susan's the MVP. LVP season 1 is Maddie. Maddie is actually grows the most as far as like character work in season 1 and season 2. So I won't give him LVP for season 2. Season 2 LVP, I'm going to give it to Sarah because she wasn't willing to let her family know in the same fashion that Blair does. I don't think Blair should be forcing her to tell her family, but you got to keep it even in a relationship. If Blair's letting her family know and putting up to that type of scrutiny, especially from Maddie, you got to be willing to meet her halfway and let your family know as well. So Sarah for bailing and then getting upset that she kissed a teddy bear. Come on, what are we talking about here? You're the LVP for, in my opinion. Sorry, Sarah. You were all right in season 1, but season 2, you're my LVP. And yeah, that is my review of Ted season 1 and season 2. I hope you guys enjoyed Ted the TV show as much as I do. If there's any changes and they come back, this is my plea. Please, someone clip this, or we'll clip it here. This is my plea. Please bring Ted back for a season 3. I know Seth MacFarlane has gone out and confirmed that there will not be a season 3, but me, my missus, my kids, we love this Ted show. This Ted show has brought us so many lives. It's brought us together. We have a comfort show to watch, and I enjoyed it way too much. This can't be the end. I know there's going to be an animated series, but we already got Family Guy. We need a live action Family Guy, and that is Ted. And it's a live action Family Guy of the original Family Guy. The original Family Guy was peak television, peak comedy, and that's what Ted is in the live action version for season 1 and 2. Please bring it back for season 3. We need more Ted in our life. Like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe if you are new to True Hill Heat Sports and Entertainment. I will be back with y'all on the next one. We got some more great content for you to enjoy this week. Sunday, we got THHC, True Hill Heat Check. We're talking about the latest in NBA basketball. It'll be myself, Chris G, and my nephew, Taj Childs TC will be rejoining us once again for the 3rd straight episode. You also got Clocking In, our review show for The Pit, so go and check that out as well, reviewing The Pit season 2. Check out all the great content we got on the channel right now, like our Scream ranking for every film. Also, we got our Ghostface Killer tier ranking. Check out the last THHC 27 where we talked about Luca for MVP. Check out the last Clocking In for episode 4 of season 2 of The Pit, and check out True Headphone Heat where me and Stad King talked all about 50 Cent versus T.I.'s rivalry. It is me, your True Hill Phenom SP3. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought about Ted the TV show, and until the next one, this has been our Ted seasons 1 and 2 review. We are signing off until next time.